Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a first impressions video for you. Today we are looking at, yes, an EMP EDC. Most of you will recognize the logo there. I have been pretty curious about picking up one of these knives for some time. The Nimble admittedly was too small for me. Most of you would know that already. The Nimble X though was pretty much in my wheelhouse, but I just never, I tried to get one a couple of times and wasn't really able to work things out. But I have been fortunate enough to lay my hands on their most recent model, the Relative, and you can see both closed and opened why the term relative makes sense. It definitely is related design-wise to the previous iterations. Okay, this is a little bit thicker blade stock, a little bit thicker handle stock, which of course is perfect right in my wheelhouse. All right, and so they're kind of shooting at a slightly beefier build in this particular model. And I have to say, one, that really appeals to me, but also there's a lot of features here that really appeal to me. So let me just give you a quick rundown of the features that this has, the various design elements that I think are worth noting. Then we'll get to size and weight, and finally I'll give you my initial thoughts. So starting up here, we have a MagnaCut blade. This is compound ground clip point, absolutely gorgeous satin on this. And I have to say, this really checks all of my boxes. I'm again, I've argued this in plenty of videos in the past. I'll say it again. I think a compound grind is one of the best ways to achieve toughness and cutting power. And even apart from that, if you're doing like a drop point blade or a spear point blade shape or something like that, just a straight hollow grind is phenomenal, and performance wise will kill a flat ground blade in almost every situation with a couple of minor exceptions. So absolutely love the performance that a compound blade gives and the balance that's produced in terms of toughness and durability and cutting power. All right, so I haven't mentioned fuller, haven't mentioned the full jimping up here, and the very hefty blade stock. This is over 1/8 of an inch, not quite 5/16, but pretty close. Okay, so pretty thick, beefy blade stock here. All right. I will say this is MagnaCut steel. There are some others. I think there's LMAX and 20CV as well. All right. And I think there's a DLC coated version of this. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm about 90% sure that you could also do DLC. That's the blade variation that's available. It is a bearing pivot, titanium frame lock. The deployment options are, of course, the thumb hole here, which does work extremely well. This is kind of a knife it's almost meant to be Spidey flicked, but it will open nicely with thumb roll. The front flipper works as well as any front flipper I've seen, and better than many. All right. So that's the action. Liner lock is accessible. It does drop shut pretty nicely. Okay, so overall the action is quite good. It is single row bearings, which doesn't exactly match the beefy build. I would love to see dual row bearings here, but that's okay. We'll let them get away with that. Moving on to the handle. In this case, there is a plain titanium version that I've seen floating around quite a bit. This is the DLC coated titanium, nicely milled on the scales. We've got this sort of convex or concave, I'm sorry, milling all the way around, which does make the knife a little more comfortable. Internally, it is milled to save weight. Bronze anodized hardware on this particular variant. So again, there are a couple of variants. I think I've seen one with blue hardware, and the black one might be all black hardware, and I think the titanium one might be the raw titanium might be all titanium hardware. Forgive me if I get one of those wrong. Okay, the milled clip does seem to work pretty well, and then we've got a nicely milled lanyard hole if you're into that kind of thing. And you can see the bronze anodized titanium backspacer there as well. Okay, all the hardware that I can tell is T8, so that's pretty pretty welcome. It's definitely a preference for me and virtually everyone else. These are made by Bestech, and Bestech seems to have done a pretty darn good job here. In terms of size and weight, we have 7 and 7/8 overall, so just a little under 8 inches, close enough to be fine. The blade length is a little over 3 and 3/8, so it's not quite 3 and 7/16. It's just kind of a hair under that, possibly a little closer to that than it is to 3 and 3/8. If we close this guy, we're going to get 4 and 7/16, so that's under 4.5 inches. Pretty darn comfortable in terms of carry in pocket. And that also gives a pretty good blade to handle ratio, I would say. 3 and 5/8 grip area. So if you have even bigger hands than mine, I can get 4 fingers on here, but the butt of the handle does sort of sit in my palm, not, out here somewhere beyond it. All right. So, given the fact that it fits this way in my hand, that's if I don't choke up and use the finger choil. But given if I'm back here not using the finger choil, that may mean that if you have much larger hands than me, either one, you'll be forced to kind of always use a choked up version of a saber grip, or you may only be able to get 3 fingers on this if your hand was really, really big. I feel like I've gone a little getting into too many weeds here for a first impression, but I thought I'd throw that out there just because this is a little bit small on the grip area department. 4.32 ounces is the weight on this. And, I have absolutely no issue with that in terms of a carry knife. Anything under 5 ounces is, I consider lightweight. Anything over 5 ounces, I still consider fine for carrying, but maybe I wouldn't carry it in like workout pants or something like that. All right. What are my initial thoughts? Yeah, very, very cool design. I've got to say, this is a really, really handsome knife. Great materials and a lot of really cool features that I absolutely enjoy. The compound grind, the access to the opening hole that sort of lands perfectly for that middle finger spidey flick. Okay. Really, really great action. The detent is dialed in. The ergonomics are good, especially with that option of the finger choil. The only thing I will say is, the one sort of letdown that I have about this knife, and I knew about it long before I ever purchased one. The only minor letdown is it would have been nice to see dual row ceramic bearings here instead of single row, just because you're overbuilding, right? You're purposely trying to make something a little heavier duty than your previous designs. Would have been nice to see the that theme sort of carried on internally and not just in terms of external sort of parts and looks. All right, there you go, guys. Great knife, very, very fidget friendly. I mean, such an addictive knife. If you have this in your pocket, you almost can't help yourself from taking it out and flipping it. And you have to sort of remind yourself sometimes, like, wait, I'm in line at the grocery store. If I start flicking a knife, I'm going to get arrested, right? It's that fidgety that you just want to be playing with it all the time. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check those channel sponsors. Now, I will say this is not available at every retailer, so you may not be able to get this particular knife at those various channel sponsors. And I will just give a shout out to Canadian Knife and Gear. I was able to pick this up from a fellow Canadian knife enthusiast, which is really cool and something that often happens if you're a member of Canadian Knife and Gear. So if you're a Canadian and you're interested in knives and you're not on there, I would recommend you sign up. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. Again, we'll talk to you soon.